So 2005, I'm still doing shows on and off for Third Eye Blind. And it's actually interesting because I don't know if you were still living there, but I'm in Salt Lake City doing a Third Eye Blind show. And this would have been 05, and I get a call from Bill Ramey, who at the time was production manager for the Foo Fighters. He's like, hey, the Foos are starting up. I need you to be a carpenter. You need to do all this stuff, build this set, come on out. So instead of flying home, I flew to LA. And you know, what I thought was just gonna be like, go do like 2 or 3 shows on a weekend turned into 11 weeks, right? So I built this, the premise is they wanted to take like old speaker cabinet, you know, like 4x12 cabinets that guitar players would use, or like 810 bass cabinets that, you know, Ampeg bass players would use, or any kind of old PA gear, and like stack it all up, like on angles or whatever, right, as the back line. So instead of having, I mean, we still had cabinets that we put in there that worked, but it was basically all this like old stuff. So my job was, I went out, and back then there used to be the Recycler, which was a newspaper in LA that you could get and buy gear out of, and then there used to be this store called Black Market Music. I bought a bunch of stuff from them, but I just went and like bought all this stuff and then figured out how to put it all together on set carts, right? And then I ended up making 2 of them, 2 complete sets, so that we could like leapfrog in Europe doing festivals, right? So we had one there, and then like, so we weren't trying to fly that in a day's time to get to the next show or whatever. So you have one that was there that then would get trucked to the next show, and you're using that one for the next show, and then you jump to this one, and the one that was going to go to the next show. It's just how you can, you know, you spend money, but you end up, in the long run, you make way more money because freight is so expensive, right? Especially when you got to like air freight something that big, it's huge money. So yeah, I was fortunate enough. I was in LA, and I built these sets and whatnot, and then went out on that tour in 05, and was with the Foos in 05, and then into 06. And Bill actually left. He didn't do the tour as a production manager. Another guy came in and did it. But I stayed with that until they went out. They were going to go out because they did like the record that we were supporting, In Your Honor. There was like electric and acoustic. So they did the electric thing, and then they were going to go out and do like a smaller version, the acoustic stuff. So I kind of was really going to be out of a job kind of thing. So I left that, and then Bill was with the Chili Peppers again. So they're gonna, this is Stadium Arcadium. So they're gonna go out and start Stadium Arcadium. So he calls me up, hey, come in, need you to be the carp on this, just gonna be you. So I go in, we go into the Forum in LA to build the show and rehearse it and program it and all that. So that's where we started on Arcadium, and then we went, I think, right to Europe. I think we went out of there and went to Europe and did festivals and whatnot. So, and again, that was a big record and big tour. I'm just trying to think if there was any. Again, I'm kind of drawing a blank, Alan, but at least we'll get the chronological stuff done. So at any rate, so we do that tour into 06, or no, into 07, right? I come home, we go to Australia, come back, we do Coachella. This is the first time I played at Coachella. We do Coachella, or Coachella, or how the fuck it's pronounced. And I finish that, I come home. Now they're gonna do a short, like a 3-week run of stadiums in Europe, but like I'm not part of that. So at any rate, the Beasties are getting ready to go out again. So Bill's not doing it, but I get a call from him like, hey, we want you to come back. So that was for the mix-up record, which was all instrumental, which I really liked. And it was, the way we were doing that is we do 2 shows in each town. We do an instrumental show on like the smaller stage or a smaller venue, right? Like for instance, because you're familiar with Denver, right? So we played the instrumental stuff at what used to be the Fillmore, or now it's the House of Blues or whatever, right? We did the instrumental stuff there, and then the hip hop stuff we did at Red Rocks, okay? So we had that show and then the smaller show. But it was cool because they called it the gala event. So they would encourage their fans to show up in like tuxes and prom gowns, ball gowns, and they'd like give out trophies for dance competitions. I mean, it was just, to me, it was like genius. It was, those guys were always thinking, they always came up with really cool things. But I just thought that was a genius thing to do, right? And it was just great because you do one thing here and one thing there. And so we did that. I think we started it in Europe, and then came back and did it in the US. We went to Japan, and did Fuji Rock. We might have done some other shows in Japan, and then came back, and then that finished.
And you were the Beasties?
Yeah, okay. Yep, with the Beastie Boys, and that finished towards the end of 07, or the end of the summer of 07. I think it was getting into like fall, right? And I'm gonna tell one story in Japan at Fuji Rock. So the percussion player for the band, he came in 98 when I came in. His name is Alfredo Ortiz, right? And he also played drums on the punk rock songs, right? So Mike D would, besides doing the hip hop, he would play drums on the instrumental stuff and whatnot, but, or, you know, like any of the punk rock songs, Alfredo played drums. When he wasn't doing that, he was doing percussion, right? But we were in Fuji Rock, and you know, there's a bunch of bands there, right? So Lilly Allen was there, and again, this is to the best of my knowledge, and I might be fucking this up, but boring story short, Alfredo had a little too much to drink, and I think he was drinking with Lilly, and at that time, Lilly was a pretty good drinker. I know she's since sober, and God bless you, I haven't drank in 30-some years, so amen to you. But that was an interesting show, and that's where the first time I heard the term Liquerace, because that's what we were calling them. Because they were like wearing like the suits, like the 50 style suits and everything, right? You think like the Rat Pack suits, right? So he was having a little trouble walking from the percussion kit over to the drum kit to play the punk rock and getting back and whatnot. So yeah, that was Liquerace. So sorry, Alfredo, but you know, it happened. So that finished. And then Foo Fighters were starting up again, and I went back to Foo Fighters. And a little different. I mean, I was still the lead carp, but I had two other guys with me. We had the B stage, which was out at front of house, and we'd build it all out of, it was trussing with like decks on it, and then we'd secure all the band gear on it, but they came out and played like the acoustic stuff out there, right? Halfway through the show. But what we do is this was the big gag. We'd attach all this stuff to it, safety it all down, then fly it up into the roof, into like, you know, these soft goods we had hung that we call the garage in the biz. It's like, yeah, you're gonna go park it in the garage. And then there was a walkway that went all the way out the front of house. Halfway through the show, Dave would walk out, this would come in, the band they'd play 3 or 4 songs out there, go back up, and we just leave it there for the rest of the show. We wouldn't fly it back out. So there was a bit of a build, and there was a lot of barricade, like, so you got to barricade not only the downstage edge, you got the thrust that goes all the way out the front of house, then you got a barricade around that. So there was, and then a bunch of soft goods and all that, and there was a lot of work on that. But just to speak of Dave, I think it was on this tour, we got to Australia, or New Zealand, Auckland, New Zealand. And it's Thanksgiving, and like we get this like email like, hey, Dave's putting on Thanksgiving dinner. We got in the ballroom at the hotel or whatever. So go down there, and it turns out, because he's originally from Virginia, obviously you know him from a band in Seattle, but he still has his place in Virginia. So there's this chef or guy who owns a restaurant. I'm gonna call him a chef because I've eaten his cooking and it's goddamn good. So he brings the chef and his family to Auckland, New Zealand to cook Thanksgiving dinner, right? So I see him and I'm like, Dave, man, thank you so much for this. He's like, why are you thanking me? I didn't cook. Go thank the chef. But it just, like, I just want to tell you, the guy you see is the guy that I've always seen. Like, there's no premonition. There's no, like, I'm going to be Dave in front of the camera. That's just Dave all the time. And he's, you know, God bless him for it. You know, it's one of those things, like, I don't ever hear anybody say anything bad about Dave Grohl. Well, there's one person, but I won't mention her. So let's see, Foo Fighters, 07, and that rolls into 08.